A mystery boat washes up on Ireland's coast with a strange message. What might that be? Well, you gotta watch on to find out, everybody. Ireland has seen many strange things washed up on its coastal shores, but when a mystery boat was spotted near the Irish coast in 2016, the Coast Guard and authorities scrambled to help. However, funnily enough, there was no crew to be found. Initially, everyone was stumped by the appearance of the odd craft and the purpose of it. Everyone wanted to know where it had come from, and how it even got there. When the mystery was finally solved after piecing the bizarre clues together using the strange message, the vessel became a very interesting tourist attraction. Read on to discover what the strange message meant, and what exactly the purpose of this mystery boat proved to be. In 2016, it was just another gloomy day in Ireland. Not unlike all the rest, though. The skies were gray, and a heavy mist had set in over the coast. The people were going about their daily routines when suddenly something appeared in the distance. No one was quite sure what the mysterious object was, but it was big and floating off the Irish coast. It seemingly had no purpose and no objective. That's when someone decided to call the authorities to look into the matter. The large object was on a collision course, headed straight for the rocky eastern Irish coastline. And as it grew closer, people realized that it must be a boat or a vessel of some sort. It was just floating in the water, letting the waves take it where they pleased. Confused onlookers knew that they had to do something before the vessel came crashing into the rocky coastline. If there were people on board the ship, then they were in dire distress. So they did the only thing that they knew how. Some good Samaritans called the Coast Guard to report the strange vessel floating just off the coast. The Coast Guard sprang into action immediately, worried that if anyone were on board the ship, they could be in some kind of danger. As they did approach the ship, they noticed something very odd. The ship didn't look like anything that should be out in the water, as its design looked more like a caravan. But then, something unexpected happened when they boarded the ship. When the Coast Guard personnel boarded the vessel, they found something very strange indeed. After searching the entire boat, they couldn't find a single person on board. The discovery raised far more questions than answers. Where had all the passengers gone? The entire event left the Coast Guard stumped. One of the operatives even stated that it was the strangest thing that he had ever come across. The boat was designed in a way that the Coast Guard had never come across. It didn't even look like it should have been seaworthy. Despite that, the Coast Guard believed that the boat was perfectly seaworthy, even though the peculiar vessel was made out of unorthodox materials, and the design wasn't really compatible with sea travel. But that still did not answer any questions. Just where had the vessel come from, and why were there no people on board? Those were all questions that would only be figured out much later. Only after they got the boat back to the coast and investigated further. The next difficult thing the Coast Guard was tasked with was trying to get the boat back to the coast and on land. Not knowing how stable the craft was, they didn't want to try and investigate too much while it was at sea. Even though the boat was still in one piece, it had obviously been through a lot based on the weathered conditions on the outside of the structure. The windows had all been smashed in and broken boards lay all around the vessel. When the boat was finally grounded on the Irish coast, the Coast Guard began to explore further inside. What they found was truly remarkable. While the vessel had been through a lot, it was still largely intact, just needing a bit of renovation. It looked to them like it was certainly made for someone to live in, but there was no signs of a person or personal items anywhere. That's when they looked at one of the walls and found a mysterious message. The mysterious message included one hint at who might have built the strange boat. The message included a name that proved to be a lead as to who could have built the strange-looking vessel, and for what purpose. The shape itself is very unusual, because the size of it. I initially thought it might be a caravan, one of the Coast Guards commented. He added that the boat was, however, inhabitable, arousing suspicion on what its purpose had been. The plot was only beginning to thicken at this point. Either way, no matter what the boat's purpose was, they only had one clue as to who could have built the vessel, and that was a man named Rick Small. But Small didn't turn out to be a local man. He was actually someone from the other side of the world. Rick Small was a man from Thunder Bay, Ontario, who was already well known in Canada for doing things that some people found a little, well, odd. According to those who knew the man, he was very nice, but a bit eccentric. So where was Small, and why wasn't he on the boat anymore? The Coast Guard did some research on Rick Small in the hopes of solving the mystery. They discovered Small to be highly involved in environmentalism, and a huge advocate of alternative energy sources, such as solar energy. Small himself built multiple vehicles, such as bicycles that run on solar energy. Still, this fact still didn't solve the mystery of the boat, nor how it made its way all the way to Ireland without even one person on board. There was still more to the message on the wall, and the Coast Guard needed to interpret it further. After some research on Rick Small, the authorities discovered that Small had decided that he was going to build his very own solar-powered boat. But he didn't want to build the boat just to travel in. He also wanted to make the boat a home for himself. Small also didn't want to just travel around the Canadian coastline. He had much bigger plans in mind when he set off to build the boat. Rick Smalls wanted to sail across the Atlantic Ocean in his solar-powered creation, but little did he know at the time, though, that his love of solar energy would lead him to something bigger than he had ever dreamed of. So good old Rick Small, with his dream in mind, started working on a plan to build his solar-powered boat. He was by no means a shipwright, but he had the will and he was going to find a way. With the help and guidance of some local companies, Small started to purchase the items that he would need for his boat building project. He decided that he would build the boat out of lumber and polystyrene, a general-purpose plastic that is clear and hard. However, once all this information was established, the Coast Guard wanted to know where Small was and why he had written a strange message on the wall. Before the vessel was found off the coast of Ireland, Rick Small worked long and hard to complete the boat. In the end, it was 20 feet long, an impressive sized boat for someone with no experience in boat making. Then he started to prepare for his grand voyage. With almost everything in order, Rick was getting ready to set sail across the Atlantic Ocean. But if Small's boat made it all the way from Canada to Ireland, where was Rick Small? That question would be a hard one to answer. Before setting sail, Small decided that he would let the Coast Guard know about his plan to set sail across the Atlantic. The Coast Guard, however, wasn't thrilled with the idea. They claimed that the vessel wasn't seaworthy enough to make the long journey. Fearing that he would be intentionally putting his life at risk, Rick Small decided that he wouldn't be attempting the trip across the Atlantic after all. But if that was the case, just how did his boat get all the way over to Ireland? What's more, what message was written on the wall, and had Rick Small written it himself? However, things didn't quite go as planned for the Canadian environmentalist. There are many theories on the exact events surrounding the unusual fate of the boat, but the most agreed upon theory is that the boat got loose in the docks somehow. From there, the boat most likely got accidentally detached, perhaps in a storm, and started to drift. The free drifting boat apparently made its way all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, to where it ended up on the Irish coast where the secret message would be revealed. I mean, the boat drifted all the way from the Canadian island of Newfoundland for more than 20,000 miles to the Irish coast near Count Mayo. When the Irish authorities finally got the ship ashore, they began investigating the inside more thoroughly. Oh, and that message I was talking about? Well, inside the boat, they did find the cryptic message written on the wall, saying, "I, Rick Small, donate this structure to a homeless youth, to give them a better life that Newfoundlanders choose not to do. No rent, no mortgage, no hydro." What did that all mean exactly, aside from a lot of generosity? No one quite knows how the ship got all the way to Ireland, but what we do know is that Rick Small repurposed the ship that he built for something else entirely. As an environmentalist, Small also had a soft spot for the homeless. Small figured that if he couldn't use the ship for sailing across the Atlantic, then he would donate the ship to a homeless person in need of shelter. After all, the boat was large enough to be used as a home for someone. Little did he know at the time, though, that his love of solar energy would lead him to something bigger than he had dreamed of. News of Rick Small's project quickly made its way across Ireland and the world. People were amazed and inspired by the story of Small's generosity and kind-hearted nature. To think that the boat made it all the way across the Atlantic by mistake. However, there was more to Small that nobody knew. The story was such a hit that tourists began to flock to where the boat was situated, quickly becoming a tourist attraction in the area. But that was only the start of what the Irish had in store for Rick Small's boat. Initially, the Irish authorities didn't know what to do with the boat. Many thought they should have left it right there where it was found. However, the solar-powered boat that had drifted all the way from Canada started attracting a lot of tourists. A number of companies have even expressed an interest in restoring the boat back to its pristine condition and making it an official landmark in their Atlantic Way tour, helping to promote tourism in the area. But that apparently wouldn't be happening, at least not yet. Irish authorities ended up placing the solar-powered boat in storage, hoping that it would eventually be claimed by its owner Rick Small. but so far he hadn't come forward. In the meantime, people have been looking for Small since the boat washed ashore. Oddly enough, no one has been able to find Small. Many people claim to have seen Small prior to the boat leaving Newfoundland, but no one knows his whereabouts currently. Also, it's unknown whether the boat was accidentally released or intentionally released from the dock. This hasn't been the only time that Small has helped promote something big. Prior to building his boat, Rick Small built another solar-powered invention that took news headlines by storm. Small built a solar-powered three-wheeled bike for a very unusual purpose. However, that's a story in itself for another day. That's our video for today, everybody. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I would like you to click on one of the two videos above, and we will see you all next video.